the question that I received and also today's teaching is related. So I'll be giving you answer together. Lives in 일산 and
불성이 있다라고 했는데 모든 중생은 다 불성이 있다라고 했는데 그러면 무아라고 한다면
it is said in the Nirvana Sutra that every sentient being has the sense of Buddhism in their heart. But here, if we misunderstand, then it could also mean that everyone has sense of Buddhata or the Buddha nature, but then there is not voidness, isn't it? So in Korean Buddhism, we are not able to clearly explain, and we also have many room for misunderstanding. Is one of them.
영원한 실체를 갖고 있는 것이 하나도 없다라고 말씀을
Buddha has mentioned that nothing in this world that which exists, which is eternal. But in the Nirvana Sutra, why is it mentioned that it's eternal?
이것은 이제 아마 이 우리 저 황도진 불자께서 이제 이렇게 그 질문을 해주신
But this this is a question asked by Mr. Wang. So if you do not understand it properly, then it could cause a serious misunderstanding.
미세한 차이에 외도의 생각을 갖고
It's a very minute and very detailed difference. But if you have the sense which is outside Buddhism, or if you have been living in the misunderstanding, then it causes many difference. So even in the Nirvana Sutra, if I tell you that it is not wrong to both of them, which were mentioned before, are not wrong, then you could say there are two contradictory speeches, but it is not contradictory. It's just to say that the understanding is not in depth, and also about this, I don't think the person who asked the question saw my teaching in full. Why is it same to say that all beings have the sense of data in them and everything is void? Even if I repeat thousands and 10,000s of times, if you leave out or if you miss the very minute detail, then you can easily go to a wrong direction. Well, since the sense of Buddhata is me and myself, and if you understand this, and we can all become Buddha, then that's all a lie. Then is it wrong to say everyone everyone has a sense of Buddhata? Well, it's not wrong to say. Before I explain to you with the matchstick as an example, right? Give me the matchbox and water. Can you switch it off for shortly? You have to listen to this carefully. Then you can know the precise meaning behind it. Here, do we have fire? Well, if you say there is a fire, then the fire should be lit. Then is the fire or is the light hidden somewhere inside? So if it meets the relation, then does it appear? So is it inside or not? You cannot say it is not there. So if you say it is not there, it means it is there. But if it's not there, then how can it appear? Well, if it's hidden, then if I break this into half, does it appear?
이건 말을 그러니까 잘못하면 말에 오해가 생긴단 말이에요. 지금은 이거는 모두가
So if you do not say it properly, then it could easily cause misunderstanding. Everything is the condition for the fire. Here the fire doesn't exist, but everything is the condition. But if you say the fire is already here, then the fire should be lit already. And if the fire is hidden, then if we break into half, then it should appear. But here, it has the conditions. But if we just give one condition, then the fire appears. So the conditions are there. So if we do this, then the light appears. But if we just give this condition, then with the sulfur and with the mastic and also the strength, when they meet together, then the fire comes. But the fire was not there. After we do this, and in such a situation, if you try to look for the light, does it exist? But if we are to say that the fire exists from the beginning, then we can just break it and make it into a powder and dust off the fire, isn't it? But if we say the sense of data is inherent in us already, then we can just easily take out the sense of data and drag it out. Because we are confident that we have them, we feel that we just have to find them. So that's why we feel that there is no even need for the disciplining rules, and you don't need anything else. But you can just play around, and maybe one day if you find the fire, you can easily become Buddha. Such an extreme perception arises because of your misunderstanding. But if we say it doesn't exist, but if you ask if it doesn't exist at all, then no matter how much you try, it will not arise. That is the dependent arising. When all the conditions are fit, and is there, then it happens. So what is the cause for the light? If you have the sense of bodhisattva that I'm going to become the Buddha, it happens. So without having the sense of Buddha, you cannot expect the sense of Buddhahood. You understand what I mean? So that's why, on the potential that the sense of Buddhata exists, and on that condition, if you do something like this, then the sense of Buddhata arises. So you should not misunderstand it. And that's why the fire was not here from the beginning. That's why it is void. There is no fire which doesn't change, lies here. That's why everything becomes almost like absence of self. It doesn't have the property that you desire. It does not have the property that you expect. But it arises because of the conditions that's given. That's why the absence of self, or having the sense of data, they are one same thing. If you don't understand this, then you say many wrong things again and again. And so without the sense of bodhisattva, you cannot gain enlightenment. But if you ask, can a dog have the sense of bodhisattva? They cannot. That's why only human can become Buddha. Only if you become human, you can become Buddha. You have to become a human to have the sense of consciousness, and then you will have the desire to have the consciousness, and you can make the differentiation, and it provides the room to develop the sense of bodhisattva. And so you provide with the conditions, and even the sentient beings in the hell and in the heaven, they cannot develop the sense of bodhisattva. Only human beings can do it.
그래서 무아와 불성이 있다는 게 상치되는 말이 아니냐 그런 것은.
So that's why the voidness, without studying the midway and without studying the midway or without having the proper understanding of the midway, you try to understand. That's why you are stuck in two different directions or dimensions.
이솝과에서 나오듯이 황금 알을 낳는 거위가 있다. 그러면 그 황금 알을 낳는 거위.
Just like in the storybook of Aesop, if you say there is a dog that lays a golden egg, and if you believe that, if you also believe that the gold would be there, but when you kill the dog, you found out that the golden eggs are not there. Golden eggs were produced depending on the condition. So when we talk about this,
지금 이렇게 승낙을 이렇게 하지 않았을 때 이게 지금 있느냐?
well, if I don't do this to the mystic, and if the question is asked, is it there? Then you cannot say it is there. Well, it's a comparison.
이거는 비무야.
Then when you put on the light,
비무해도 완벽한 설명은 안 돼.
well, it's also not a perfect explanation. If you say it is there, it is not there, or it exists or it doesn't exist. But then if you say it is not there, when the conditions are given, it happens.
발생했으니까 완전히 비무는 아니잖아요. 비유는 없는 것은 아니잖아요.
Because the flame arose, we cannot say it was not there from the beginning. So in the very beginning of the midway, well, the midway, it refers to the voidness. The midway, when I studied nowadays, I think we can also interpret it as voidness. The saying itself that all sentient beings have the sense of Buddhata in them itself is the sayings of the midway. In the Pranya Paramita, the midway is also Pranya Paramita. It belongs to Pranya Paramita. And what does it try to imply? It says that it refers to the voidness which doesn't have its own characteristics. Well, are you able to understand this? If you're able to understand this, it's amazing. So the property doesn't exist since the beginning, but then what is the difference? Where there's no difference to say it doesn't have property that's lasting eternal, and it changes, but you have to see the concept that Buddha has said, the human being, if we want, then we can become Buddha. So with this speech, if you misinterpret, then you can assume that, well, it is something that we had it inherent in us. Then, if this had fire before, then it should burn off. But let's think, if we soak this in the water, if we dip this in the water, can it have the fire? It cannot. If we miss even one condition, then it doesn't work. And what is having the wrong conditions? It's almost like having the wrong ideas or thinking something wrong. So times like that we do, although we say we are in the monastery studying, we are not able to let go of something evil or something wrong, and our thoughts, it always differ between one to another. It's almost like soaking or dipping the mastic in the water, or like mixing the sand in the rice and eating them, because Koreans are very emotional. Although it is wrong, people assume that, well, we were together since a long time, and you are swayed by the emotions. You shouldn't be swayed by the emotions in terms of practice. sometimes people comment that since they have done the lightning in the temple, they have to come to the monasteries. But it is wrong. Well, Buddha has once said, well, a child died and the mother almost lost her senses, and she went around screaming and asking people to save the child who is dead. And India is so hot, so even if just a day, it rains the child, the dead corpse. So since one of them felt very sad about it and recommended the mother to go see Buddha, who is a great person. And so when the mother brought the child, Buddha said he can save the child. Well, it's a method. Well, imagine how happy the mother was. But then he said, go to every village and get the mustard seed. And the condition is you have to get it from the houses where there's no one who is dead in the house. But then when she went around asking for mustard seed from each house, they were all willing to give. But then the mother was unable to find anyone who is not dead in each house. Whether it's a grandmother or grandfather or sons or whoever it is, there was not even a single house in which there were no dead person. So after going around too many houses, she was also losing her strength and she was also calming down, and she realized that everyone was dying. But in the beginning, she felt it was only her child who is dead. Even you, if you stay at home and feel why am I the only one who is sick in the house? But if you go to hospital, then the hospital is full of sick people. There are so many people who is sick in the hospitals. And even in the cancer, even in the terms of cancer, there's so many cancer patients. So there's one good thing if you go to hospital that specialize in cancer cure. Since everyone is getting the cure for cancer, you don't feel sad only for yourself too. And then you can discuss about so many different issues. And you can also share information, and where the road that we take alone, it's very dark and it's very depressing too. But then once you realize that everyone is dying and everyone will die, then the mother, after running around for about one day, she realized that and went to Buddha and said, there's not a single house in which there was no dead body. And then Buddha asked, has it calmed you a little? In this world, there's no one who can live eternally. It's just a matter of someone going earlier or someone going later. Amongst your family, there will be no one who will not be dead or who is also not dying. And so after the mother felt the sense of reality, she began to intake the reality. So, Buddha has only enabled her to accept the reality, but then if Buddha has shown the miracle or saved the child back, then Buddhism would not be the same as of now. Buddha hasn't done something like that. And since it was making her feel a little better, well, you can also see when one person starts to calm down, you realize that it's about to die. You realize that everyone dies. So even here, when we are talking about the voidness, the sense of voidness and the sense of Buddhata, two of them existing. If you ask if there are two different theories, well, they're not very different. They are the same ones. Right here, if someone is going to an island where no one lives, and And since if someone says that there is a fire here, well, after setting rice, you just put it beneath the utensil. Can it cook?
그래서 여기에 불이 있느니라 하고 준 것은
So after when we say there's a fire here, and after we give it, it means with this as a condition, try to light up the fire. But just because it has been said that there is a fire here, if you just put it beneath the utensil and say, "Oh, my father liked me," well, that's the wrong interpretation. And also, some people,
여기다 불이 있느니라
since we say there is a fire here,
가가지고 불을 일으킬 조건을 만들어서 하나의 조건을 갖다
they need to provide the conditions, but instead of doing that,
언젠가는 내가 바로 불을 발견하리라.
just stare at it and say, one day I'm going to get the fire out of it without doing any action. So when we say there is a when we say there is the sense of Buddhata in us, it means all of us has a Buddha nature, and if we want to become a Buddha, we can become Buddha. We have the conditions, but the motivation to make those conditions is the compassion with which you are going to save all sentient beings from their suffering. Without that, you cannot save anyone, or you cannot become Buddha. Why are we trying to light up? We are trying to do it in order to light this place. Well, if we say we feel very cold and so we need to make some bonfire, we are doing it because it feels very cold, and so we are trying to make them feel less cold. Even the heating system in the house, we are doing it because we want the house to be warm. So that's why old people, if they're just alone in the house, then they don't normally do it, and instead they try to save the gas. And the house is so frozen, and even in summer they are not able to get rid of their cold. So the motivation to raise the sense of Buddhata with the intention that you're only going to get nirvana for yourself, then that's very weak, so it might not work. So you need to, instead, if you have the desire to save all sentient beings from their suffering, well, if we say you just want to light up the place, then you just be lighting up a candle. But then if you want to light up the whole place for, like first say, if you want to become the president of a company or president of a country, then it's a bigger thing. Well, but if we say, if we want to light up the place for 5,000 people, then it becomes a generator. It becomes a place where we generate electricity. So it's very different. You understand? So the motivation for Bodhisattva, the motivation to become Buddha is to save all sentient beings from their suffering, and with this compassion as its basis, and only if the compassion is on its basis, it ends. So that's why we don't say Arahant is a Buddha. Buddha has surpassed Arahant, but we don't call Arahants as Buddhas. Buddha has overcome bodhisattvas, but we don't call bodhisattvas as Buddhas. They are different. You understand? Where bodhisattvas, their aim is to become Buddha, but Arahant in Hinayana is different. It's different from the sense that it's for the good of all sentient beings. So here, our Hwang Do-jin, the question that's been asked here, well, if you desire to know a little better, if you continue listening to Gomlin Parpa, you can also hear the details, or even in the Way to Bodhisattva, in the intro, you can also get more knowledge about it. It's not just, I have spoken about it so many times, but as much as I remember, I have spoken about it. So if you listen to it many times, you'll be able to come to a certain understanding.
어쨌든 그 불교는
So whatever it is, but Buddhism,
그냥 어정쩡하고 희미하고 뭐 의심풀이하고 이런 얘기가
in Buddhism, there is no story that's not clear or that is still in the perhaps stage or
불구부정하고 뭐 깨끗한 것도 아니고 더러운
that
것도
doesn't
아니고
have any supporting idea. Since people are not aware, they don't understand and they say many things.
어정쩡한 얘기가 없는 것 같다. 안 그래. 가장 정확하게 가장
You feel that there are many unclear things in Buddhism, but it isn't so. In Buddhism, it is very clear. If you think it is unclear, that means that person has fogs in their own eyes, so they are not able to see clearly.
정말 명료하게 얘기해요.
The story is spoken really clearly. So here we're only talking about the sense of Buddha, but as in the Korean style, if you say there is a sense of Buddha nature in us, it doesn't become the voidness, and it becomes the fact that there is something there already. So it changes the fact, and there's something that we cannot even find or discover, and also it becomes a practice that is not authentic Buddhism, and also becomes a wrong perceptions. That's why you need to have clear idea and concept, and you have to carry on with your studies. Also, other schools confirm that Atman is one and it's eternal, and it is also a being that is independent. They claim that there was I from the beginning, and they claim that there is something there. For example, when you say pine tree,
소나무라는 어떤 변치 않은 그 안에 뭐 실체가 안 변하는 게 하나 뭐가 있을 것이다.
You expect that in the pine tree there is certain being that doesn't change. But when we burn the pine tree, and even when we do so many things, we don't see anything that doesn't change in the pine tree. So as people, it applies the same to every being that exists. Everything are just conditions. So in Prajnaparamita, when you recite, we say it has been accumulated and it has been come in fusion with the relations, and so if you dissolve it, then you can dissolve it completely. But there normally there are also many schools of thoughts that say that there is something that exists and it still exists even now, but there are also many people who doesn't have clear idea, because people still believe that there is a creator. But then you can ask the question, what am I? I have been made. But then I am made, and is there something that doesn't change with me? But then even when you try to emphasize on the creator, it's not very clear. Atman, with the death in this life, when the meeting, physical and spiritual meeting ends, then he has to take a journey to the next life. Well, when you talk about this, something like this, or say when we have to go to next life, it seems like there is something more. So, for example, just like the pine tree that we have taken as an example, there is a DNA of pine tree, and there is the seed. And if the seed grows in a certain place, in some other place, then because of the DNA, it grows again. Then it's a passage of the DNA. But in the study of DNA, they only see that it's a passage of the DNA. But then if you ask if the DNA doesn't change, it isn't so. DNA has taken its own journey. When the seed has fallen down and the squirrel has taken it, and when the new leaf sprouts out of it, well, it's just that the DNA has moved from one place to another. And if you ask if that doesn't change, it is no, it changes. So as people, there is energy of karma, and we call that arayashik in Korean. When that energy dies, it rebounds again. But then if you ask if it doesn't change, it isn't so. I've said this many times. When you become the cells, the Arayashik in English is also known as the eighth consciousness, or in Sanskrit it is Alaya Vinana, which is also energy form that's been passed from your previous life, and as it's being awakened again, depending on the nature of the energy, some people who have studied a lot, they can activate their brain cells furthermore, and they still carry what they have done in their previous life. And also, if you say you are taking the journey to next life, that too, after a person's death, within 49 days, you change to a new or different organism. And there, again, if you ask if it doesn't change, it changes all the time. And it's just like how the living organisms are being passed down, and how just the way the DNA is changed, it changes too. And likewise, if we form a body, then the habit and also the body, it is still passed down through the DNA. And with the things that's been passed in the DNA, we again put our actions and follow our consciousness. That's why our karmas from our previous life, it gets passed down. Here, even the science, although it is not being clear 100%, but a lot of part of it has been clarified. How is our body being passed down? And how are we going through the samsara? Well, the explanation is done in quite depth, and even the spiritual way, it is also quite well acknowledged. But then it just takes time to show them in the data form. So here, when you talk about samsara, we will be able to talk about clear things regarding samsara soon. Well, but Buddhism, we have already spoken about them in detail. In my opinion, Christianity and other religions also, it seems like they believe in something that is only and that is eternal, and also believes in the independent being. This is the idea of Dalai Lama, something that after that we go to heaven, and maybe there is something that doesn't change. Such a category of school and religion emphasize on the fact that where does the Atman rely on or not. It's only this problem, but they are not denying its existence. On the other hand, in Buddhism, amongst the four different schools or sects, there is no school which believes the Atman exists in reality. Even in Hinayana, there is no. They don't believe in this, and they also talk about voidness, and also they talk about 12. They also talk about dependent arising. So Atman has only arose because of the spiritual and also physical meeting, but it doesn't have its own personality or character. So even this, because of the dependent arising, because of different conditions, it has been formulated and it is just a phenomenon. And although it has become an energy or lump of a karma, it is just a phenomenon that has been formed with the previous karmas, but it is not a phenomenon that's eternal. So even glasses in olden times, it had its own its personal color was blue. That's what we said. But nowadays we all know that it's not true. We know better nowadays that is this the was this silicon? Because of the silicon the color look blue, but if we also remove that, it doesn't have a blue color too. So it's wrong to say the original color of glass is blue. So whatever organism or whatever object, there's nothing that has a personality or character that's eternal. There is something that all schools agree on. Buddhism doesn't accept or doesn't acknowledge the existence of Atman. If we say Atman doesn't exist, you might ask, what is the object that we can intake with our eyes? Well, if I see now like this, and if I feel that it's a red color, then the question is, then who am I? If I see flower like this now, then I say I've seen a flower. I have seen a flower, but then who is I here? What has seen the flower and what has done anything? The things that we say, we are not discussing about the things that we can acknowledge in such a harsh area. But here, what we are discussing here, it's not the level when we say this body is me or not, but if we say this bag is mine, then although this bag is mine, in the bag there is no I, right? Is there I in the bag? Then why do you say it's my bag? When we say it's my bag, then what is the I there? Or what is the my there? So when we say that's my book, are we there in the book? Does this mean that the book belongs to me? Is this a matter of who has the ownership? Don't mumble yourself. So when we say our body or my body, then it means this body belongs to me. So there is separate I there, right? That means we have a dual. or alternative sense of understanding. When we say this body is mine, that means I am also existing and also this body belongs to me. Isn't it?
그죠? 그래서 우리가
So, what we call so-called as I,
뇌 속에서
it is just a phenomenon that happens inside my brain. It's just a phenomenon that causes an activity.
그래서 내가 있어가지고
We say there's I there, and so if we find it, we say there's nirvana, but there is something greatly wrong. Here, when we say the absence of self, we know very well. When we say it's void, we know very well as in the physical way. But it's a question of whether there's a spiritual something there on top of our head. Well, although we say that's my house, well, we can also throw the question, is that your house? What is my house referred to here? Are you referring it to money? At the time, we know very well that it is not me. But then some not very clever people, they cry over the matter that that also belongs to me. Well, after divorce, you get stressed about that your husband has left you, but then even your senses are not connected. You're just living together due to social reasons. Then, if we also have a close study, then we can also know that this body doesn't belong to me. It doesn't mean here we can easily find out that they don't exist like a separate entity. If we say I am there and there's also something called mine, well, then it is a different case. But then in olden times, all the people thought they are two separate things. They're just consciousness, but they don't exist in two separate entities. Then what is this? What am I? It is. I am just an object, or just a being that has come into being because of the relations, and also dependent arising. There is nothing that lasts forever or is eternal. We have to inspect the method, how the Atman, which we can see exists. Through logical analysis, we can understand the existence of Atman, which as a result of spiritual and physical meeting. About this spiritual and physical meeting, many different schools have different level of dimensional explanation, but on the basic fact that they exist depending on each other, there's no denial about it. So the consciousness that arises because of the smell, taste, or thinking, or sight. Well, and also in the consciousness that discriminates or distinguishes whether it is mine or not, all these things that act as a result of counter activity, but nothing is independent. Everything coexists and there is nothing that is independent. So in other words,
의존하여 모임을 이루고
we
있는 것을 알아보고
we
있다고
intake
했습니다.
Atman as something which
나라고
rely on
하고
something
있는
else
이
and
몸뚱아리로부터 시작해서
has a
내
meeting
몸뚱아리
of
바깥의
itself.
조건들 이런 것들도 전부 다가 또는 내
So,
정신적 작용 이런 것들도 전부 다가 독자적 존재가 없이 상호작용에 의해서
so
일어난다.
everything in our
그것인데
body or
상호작용에
everything
의해서
that
일어나는
exists in
이것
this
자체를
reality,
갖다가
they come into being because of the phenomenon of coming together. But we take that
내가 그랬을
as
때
myself or
그랬을
something
때는
that belongs to me.
그게 독단적으로
So
일으키는
there is no
나라는
I which we have come into a conclusion which as a result of our independence. Everything is interdependent and it is also relative.
무엇 때문에 아 또는 나를 애써서
Why do we have to
공부하고
study
살펴야
Atman
하는가?
or
예를
myself
집착의 정도에 따라서 자신의 편과
seriously?
다른 편적 두 편으로 나누어 볼 수 있습니다.
For example, we
자신에게
can
집착하고
give it
다른
two different categories, which is my side and also someone else's side. Normally, we have attachments for our body, and we have a sense of and we have sense of hatred for someone else.
이렇게 세밀하게 분석을 해봐야 되느냐?
And also, due to our attachment and also our offense, they change into our body and also speech and also to our heart, and we also perform many pessimistic or negative activities. And these negative activities,
내라는 것에 의해서 내한테
these negative activities has also arose because of the sense of discrimination, which is Atman or which is also I.
그러니까 이제 유시각에서는 병제 소집성, 삼성에 관한 것을 얘기할 때 병제 소집성 그렇게 얘기한단 말이에요. 그럼 이제 그렇게 해서
In yoga character, they also give a different name for this, with the Atman this arising, and also the sense of discrimination that whether it befits me or whether it is not befitting me. Because of that sense of discrimination, you start to think too whether it befits me or not, and from there your agony also starts.
근데 내한테
But the things that befits you, for them you have attachments. In order to have more, you develop attachments. And although your attachments are developing, because of the property of the material, all of them change. Well, the things that's very tasty, it changes sooner, it spoils sooner. The thing that which is easiest to have stomach ache after eating, it also spoils fast. And not tasty ones, they also do not rot well because they also do not rot very fast because they don't have so much carbohydrates or something tasty in them. Like for example, like wood logs. So, if it's something that I had attachments, well, for example, if you say they're playing in a very interesting way, for example, like if children has played, not even forgetting their dinner time or lunch time, the time has gone very fast. But things that we have attachments for, think about it. Through our children, I guess it's same for you too. How old is your child? When you see your son's gray hair, you feel sad for it, right? But then you don't feel so much about someone else's child. Just like that, someone else's child has also become 52. But my son, you feel sad and sorry because for you it is your son. And the other person is someone else's son. My son is growing wrinkles, and when he starts to have gray hair, then you feel very bad about it and you wish you would grow older on his behalf. But then if someone asks you to grow older instead of your son, you also feel bad about it, because you yourself comes before your son. So with me as the center, things that you think is befitting your greatness, you try to have more and you try to grow the attachments, but even the property changes and so it disappears, isn't it? But me as a center, there will be three activities. First, good thoughts, like thoughts that grows attachment. Second one, the thought that grows detest. You wish not even to see them. Because of that person, you wish to move the house, or there are many cases when you don't want to see someone, and so following activity follows. But the things that you hate, you don't want to see them, but they also do not disappear soon. So in reality, the time is actually going in the same speed. Time is actually passing in the same speed, but you feel different about them. When your husband is bringing salary, how is it? You feel good about it. But when your husband comes home drunk, you wish the tiger would take away your husband, leaving only the envelope. After that, you have the sense where there is nothing, or where you are being lethargic. But then if you say that has a form and which doesn't change, then even your senses or even your feelings of likeness or hatred shouldn't change, but they change. And the problem is the third thing called I, it changes just like in the Joseon dynasty, the King Yeongjo. With your husband, when you are getting married, you made so many vows, like you'd live until your gray hair, you grow gray hair, and but when you live with the person, there are also many times when you hate the person or when you don't want to carry on with the marriage anymore. So the object, sometimes it changes like this or that, and even the attachment, it changes to hatred. But hatred is not fixed from the beginning. Why? Because I change. So without your husband knowing, if you draw a triangle, and if you like your husband that day, you can draw a circle, and if you really hate your husband that day, put an X. Then you can see how your heart fluctuates. If it changes so many times, even in a single day, then maybe you can start to categorize depending on hours.
내라고 생각을 고집하고
So if you have the fixed idea of myself and also the sense of discrimination with me as the center, our heart which fluctuates and which also discriminates, we call that actually the agony.
그걸 번내라 그래요.
Why do we have to check that it is void?
무아가 돼야 되고
Why do we have to attain and also understand that it is the void? That is to get rid of the attachments for myself. But in Korea, we are trying to develop myself. In foreign countries, because the philosophy is not so strong, they keep talking that in psychology, the development of I is finding, developing of ourselves, and then you will have more sense of discrimination.
요즘 애들 내가 그 접하면서
Nowadays, I think again and again, because the sense of discrimination and also the self-love is too strong, that in future there will be more problems. And so, if there's a star, then people chase him away, chase after them, even skipping meals. But then when they decide to get married, then you tend to become stalker, and
그래 그 사람하고 시집 장가
the person who got married to the star also goes through a lot of difficult times.
그래서 왜 이걸
So
갖다가
why do we have to analyze this in detail?
이 아라고 했을
The
때
attachment itself, which is aroused because of myself, it has become the cause for the greediness and also all the afflictions and the pain. It is all for myself, for me to live better and for me to live a happier life. Everything happened because it was for me and for myself.
그래서 이걸
So
품으로 나가는 거야. 나에
we
대한
have to get rid of attachment for myself,
내 분별된
and
대로 내 중심에
with the selfishness,
분별한 대로
with the selfishness with me in the center, you discriminate and you live your life as per your taste.
그건 끊임없이
That becomes the reason that causes pain endlessly. It is not only restricted to personal issues, but throughout the world,
세계적으로 지금
it has become an issue, and
이슈화돼 있고 이미
already,
그 아주
even though sociologists they agree to this, in this world, if everyone is following nationalism,
민족끼리
then there will be only wars.
전쟁밖에 안 일어납니다. 지금
Israel is not able to overcome nationalism, and they just kill all other races, just like they butcher the dogs. But even the dogs, they don't kill like that. So it is selfishness for the nationalism. So socialists they also agree to this generally, that without overcoming such sort of nationalism,
전부 다 모든 사람이 평등한 것을 다
if we live our life not accepting that everyone is equal, then this life would be very difficult. Even the religion,
허물 속에서 내 종교 아닌 종교는 전부 다
if it's not my religion, then people also grow attachments.
종교는 전부 다 싫고 내 편 아니면 너는 죽어라.
If you say only my religion is good or only my religion is better and all other religions should go to hell, then there can be no peace in this world. No one will be happy. Starting from personal issues to all the groups or organizations, it applies the same. So
그래서
generally,
일반적으로 우리는 자신에게 집착하고 다른 이에게 적의를 품습니다. 집착과 적의가 생겨서
generally we have attachments for ourselves and we have offense for others. With the attachment and offense,
아 또는
we commit many negative
아 또는
actions,
나에 대한
negative behaviors, and all these negative behaviors
부정적인 농도의 범위가 달라집니다.
has aroused because of Atman or for my because of the wrong consciousness of Atman or me. Atman or me, depending on the depth of the wrong understanding, all these negative behaviors or negative senses, their activities also depend. Instinctively, the thing that we say is me, or the person that we have attachment is I. If you study them even in detail, over there's no I which we can call something that is spiritual, and also something that also controls the spiritual and the physical meeting. So we can say that there's no control box that controls it, because there's nothing that is eternal. Because of the wrong understanding or misunderstanding for myself, instinctively, we keep having attachments or greediness. Well, the presidents, when we ask the presidents to empty their heart, it doesn't mean they need to become foolish, but they need to listen to everyone's saying. And after saying, they can find answer. But then if you say, I'm intelligent, I'm clever, and I need to do everything as per my like, then you can always have problems. Even in the house, what is the most uncomfortable house? It's a house when the husbands are not very proper. When the husbands feels that they are like Kim Il Sung, and when they ask you to just believe in them, what's this to believe in your husband only? If they yell and if they just believe that everything they speak is different, or if the husband is only yelling, then the house would be in a mess. A father, if it's the father of the house, then first of all, he has to empty his heart and should listen first. And after listening, if the saying is right, then he can say, oh, the saying is right. But then if the saying is wrong, he can also say, well, it is correct up to this extent and wrong from this extent. But even while listening to that, they need to be able to empty their prejudice and listen. And that is only possible if they do have certain level of practice. Right now, no one is trying to empty themselves, but they're only trying to fill themselves. That's why the problem keeps arising. Amongst those desires, some of them are very interesting or distinct. Normally, when people see someone else's beauty or intelligence, they want to change what they want to change in the part that they like. Atman exists in the real form, or Atman exists depending on the conditions, for the cause and also the reasons for it. Once again, the thing that I want to say is, I'm not trying to deny the existence of Atman or I, but with the attachments that we show to Atman or I, I'm trying to point out the contradictions that arises from it. Where the saying here is so accurate, the sayings here is not being pushed, but if we say, I'm just trying to show my idea, that's okay. So that a lot of people's different ideas are gathered together, and from that, if we try to derive the correct one, and if we try to find the democratic idea, then that's the right one. Even in our democratic country, we talk a lot about the democracy, but what is in here, we have to understand and accept others a lot, and we also have to let go of something that is not democratic, or we have to learn to let go of ourselves.
이어져 내려왔던 이 성단을 보면 성단의
When,
그리고 성단 이 쌍가람의 생활에서
well, in the place where the monks lived before, democracy is developed to its fullest.
그래서 그
So democracy is also a practice which we let go of ourselves, and democracy is only achieved if we can let go of ourselves. Therefore, a yoga practitioner has to study in this way. Human, we cannot find a special self-nature, especially like 5 skandhas are very are incomparable, and also it comprises of many things.
그 대상 색성의 미촉 법하고 그렇게 얘기하고 온처 개 그러면 18개 얘기인데 거기다가
we talk about also the 18 disciples, disciplines, 18 precepts.
이제 18개 얘기하고 거기다 이제 의식 안에 그
And in the consciousness,
하나 그 꼭 구분해서 말할 수 있는 게 이제 분별 사실.
we also talk about the sense of discrimination, and if we talk about nowadays, could also be the
불교식으로 얘기한다면 아레아시. 무의식은 거의가 그 일종의 그 에너지 상태가 되어버린 겁니다.
It could also be the subconsciousness or unconsciousness.
상태 속에까지 있다라고 한 것은 잠잘 때 꿈은 여러 가지야. 여러 가지인데 이제 뭐냐면
Well, the dream that we have when we sleep is many.
아니고 이제 그렇다면 우리가
There are for many different kinds. For example, if you want to pee, the image that's been formed at the time is a reflection of something that has been put in the memory. It is also affected by the memories of the subconsciousness.
보이는 것을 갖다 이제 꿈에 보인다 그러지 이제 그런 것도 있고. 그래서 조금씩은 이제 그 달라요. 전부 다 꿈이 무의식 상태 속에서 일어나는 것은 아니에요.
So not everything happens in the subconsciousness.
제약은 찾아볼 수 없습니다. 사람의 본성이
Human nature cannot. Human nature cannot be incomparable because it has many different personalities. The 5 skandhas, as spoken before,
그다음에 수온, 그다음에 감수작용, 그다음에 생각작용, 의지작용,
the rupa, the vedana, sana, vinana, and also the sankhara. If you ask which is your real nature, well, we cannot really specify which is mine clearly. They have. It is a reflection of all of them together. Although we talk about it in a psychological or even the scientific way, everything is correct here. If we have some, if we have Atman that doesn't change, and if we say there's an Atman that doesn't change, even if we close our eyes, then we should be able to see something. But when we close our eyes, we cannot see anything.
하지만 사람은 항상 하며 하나의 성품이라고 다른 이들이 분별하기 때문에 그들은 사람을 실제한다고 합니다. 그러니까
people
나라는 것은 항상 하고 하나하나 따져보면 항상 영원한 것이 하나도
But
없는데도
people
나라는
are always
영원하고
eternal,
소중하고
and so
실제하는 것이다. 그렇게 믿기 때문에 이게
people believe that people
허망하면
always exist, and it is
변해서
also
다가오는데도
one of the
인정을 할
nature.
수가 없는 거예요.
So people tend to believe
이제
and deny to accept that it is eternal, and that's why it also causes misery.
여러분도 다음은 지금 집에
Even
가셔가지고
you, when you go home,
앨범 속에 여고 사진을
look
같이
at
한번
the
보십시오.
picture that's
지금 하나도
there
안 변했죠.
of your high school.
예?
Nothing has changed, right?
머리도 뭐 그때 뭐처럼
Even your
까맣고
hair, just like then,
다
it's
그렇죠.
still black and it's all same, right?
예? 그냥 앨범 속에 그것밖에 없지. 지금은 여고가
It's
없죠.
just
여고
there in the album, but you
없죠.
cannot find yourself as that of your high school days.
또 그 자체이거나 또는 다른 것이라고
It's
말할
either
수
that
없기 때문에
form,
사람은
or we
실제하는
cannot
거죠.
call it
우리가
as something
실제라는
else.
말은 뭐냐면
So that's why we
변치
cannot
않고
say
존재할 수 있는
human beings are
그 어떤
eternal.
것도 우리 속에는 없단 말이에요.
There is
우리
no
한테는 없단
property
말이에요.
in us
그러니까
that can
바깥에
last
나
forever
것이라고
without
하는
any
외부의
change.
일들도
Even the
내
other external
재산, 내
forces that we
명예,
say
내
which is
이런
mine,
것들도
whether it is my
전부 다
fame or my
안 변하는
property
실제
or
하나도
anything
없고
that belongs to
또
me,
내
there's nothing that
가족이라는
doesn't
존재도
change.
역시
And
마찬가지고
even the
그 다음에
family members is
나라는
the
것도
same. And
내
also the
마음이라는
something so
것도
called
안 변하는
ourselves or
실제.
my heart, there's nothing that doesn't change.
그런데 우리는 뭔가 자꾸 안 변할 것이라고 생각하는 거예요.
But we expect and think that something will not change.
뭐 영감 보고 전에 누가 싸웠다 그러더라고요.
Before I heard that they had an
결혼하고
argument
지금 너무 변했다고.
because
지도
they
변했다고.
changed too much from the time that they got married. But even that person has changed. You fear that they would do everything for you at the time of marriage, but
그안 변하고 있었다라는 게 이상하잖아요, 그죠?
isn't it weird to? It's more weird to say that they have not changed and they have remained the same.
본인도 모양도 변했거니와 마음도
Even
많이
that
변했죠.
person has changed, even in the shapes and also in the heart.
나는 모양만 변하고 마음은 안 변했시오. 그렇게 그것도 거짓말이에요. 얼마나
Well, it's also
마음도
lie to
얼마나
say I have only changed in my external looks, but my heart hasn't changed.
가끔가다가
Even your heart has changed a lot. Sometimes you feel that you got married for nothing and you're going through that misery.
보통 일이 아니야. 그게
It is not a simple
안
issue.
변하는 실제하는 본래 변하지 않는 어떤 것이 하나도 없다라는데 이제 없는데 본질은 안 변하는 것이라고 생각을 하고
You have to think that it doesn't change. You think that it doesn't change, and you want to rely on the fact that it doesn't change.
그런 것이 이 세상에는 없단 말이에요.
But in this world, something like that doesn't exist.
권력이라는 것도
Even the power.
하무12론 그러잖아요, 그죠? 권력이 10년을 못 가는데 요즘은 5년.
A power cannot last for 10 years, but nowadays it cannot last for even 5 years.
권력이 5년도 안 되고 그냥
In our country, it doesn't last for more than 5 years. And
또 이제 못 견뎌서 아파하고 이제
and sometimes people also lose their strength, and also it's very futile.
우리도 뭐 그 허망함 속에서 사는 것이지.
Even us, we live in that
근데 그 이제 허망하게
in the futileness, but there's nothing special about it.
그걸 추구를 안 한단 말이야.
And we know that it's futile. That's why we don't try to achieve that. We do not go around exercising, saying I need to live for a long time, and I don't go out looking for. We don't go out looking for a medicine that can make us live for ages.
별로 그런 걸 추구를 해야 될 이유가 없어.
There's no reason for us to. There's no reason for us to hope or aspire for something that is not going to happen. And also, if you change and if you go, well, then you just have to realize it. You change by nature. How can you not change and remain the same? before,
5년 만에 이혼을 하고
someone got
얘기를
divorced in 5 years and started talking to me, and so I said,
두부가 빨리 식었냐?
did the tofu cool down sooner,
가면 장작이 빨리 식었냐? 그러니까 두부가
or
두부가 영양가 훨씬 많으니까 빨리 식었지.
would the tofu get rotten sooner, or the wooden log? And it's tofu because it has more nutrition. And since you guys cooled down in 5 years, maybe you guys also share a lot of nutrition.
급속도로 변했구나.
It changed very rapidly.
사회적으로 볼 때는
Socially, if you study this,
70평생 같이 살았더니 참 인내심이 강하다.
they say if you live for 70 years, then you have great tolerance. Well, of course, I appreciate them. They would have bear a lot in order to live for 70, 80 years together.
많이 참고 사요?
What about you? Do you try to tolerate a lot?
예? 이제 그 처음에는 좀 막
Now,
그릇저릇하게 내가 참고 산다
where
그러는데
in the
나중에
beginning
안
you
참아가지고
assume
배고프니까
that
또
you're tolerating, but then later you realize that even if you do not try to tolerate, there is nothing special about it. And if you don't tolerate, and if you pack your bags and go somewhere, well, you realize that you have nowhere to go to.
그러니까 좀 명분을 찾아. 내가
So
애들
you try to look up for excuses because of my children.
버리면 애들
Well, if I just leave the house, then the children would share.
나 혼자 못 살아. 안 그래. 지 혼자 못 살아서 그래.
Children would have difficulties.
지 혼자
Well,
살수 있을 거면
you're not able to live alone, so you don't leave the house. If you are sure that you can live alone, then you would not even care about your children, but you will leave the house.
그러니까 한 7, 80년 같이 사셨다. 참 잘 사셨소.
So if you have lived for 30 years together, then you have lived quite a good and long time.
다 서로 변하고 그런데
Everything changes, the society, you, I.
그냥 참고
You have tolerated a lot and lived a good life.
무던해야 그렇게 살아. 왜?
You need to be very
별 볼도 없어. 또 헤어질 거니까.
down to earth to live like that.
예?
Well, but then there's also no meaning even if you live like that, because you are going to say goodbye eventually. So there are so many different methods. Amongst the goodbye methods, there's also the death.
이별하는 것을 생이별이라 그래.
Well, if you say goodbye when you're alive, then it is a goodbye that happened by force. But then,
그 생이별도 하고 뭐 사별도 하고.
so there are many cases, many different ways of saying goodbye too. And even with children, there are some people who are forced to bid goodbye,
생이별하는 사람도 있고, 그죠? 또 뭐 사별하는 사람도 있고.
and there are also people who have to say goodbye because of death. Well, life happens. So many different things happen in life, and we don't have so much choices.
즉 서로 결합하고 의지하여 존재하는 방식 외에 사물이 존재할 수 있는 방식은 없습니다. 그러니까 특별히 특수하게 존재할 수 있는 방식은 이 세상에.
So there is no special method with which human beings exist other than depending on each other. There is no special method. When we say special, there's nothing that exists in this world. There's nothing special that exists in this world. So even you all, there's no special being amongst you.
이제 개개인으로 볼 때는
Where if you study individually, you can say, oh, you are a special daughter to me, you are a special son to me.
나라는 것을 또 전제로 해서 의미
But that
부여를
is also given meaning with me as the center, but there is nothing special.
나는 특별한 존재하고 사는 사람은 대단히 나중에 불행해집니다.
And also the
다른
person
특별한
who
것을
lives
아는
with a
순간
special being,
굉장히 힘들거든요.
they
그러니까 지금
are going through a very miserable life. The moment they realize they are no
70억 명
longer
가운데
special,
하나고요.
then you go through many
하나고 얼마나
difficulties.
허망하냐면 70억 명 가운데 70억 분의 1이에요.
Well, they're just one
뭐
amongst
돼지꼬랑지를 좀 먹다가 좀 있으면 갈 거예요.
the 70 million people, and
그뭐 우주의 긴 역사를 놓고 보면
if,
말이죠.
when you study, when you look at it with the long history of the universe, with the Big Bang, and the Earth is about 50 million billion years. But then when you compare to the time of the Earth, well, if you live about like 70 or 80 years, that's just like a lightning in comparison to Earth's age.
그런데 뭐 왕이라고 태어나가지고 무슨 뭐
But over there, since we are born as a king, and if you have the grave, a king's grave, then it's only an invitation to thieves.
제일 도굴이 안 되는 것은요.
And after that, it doesn't get stolen, and that's like,
다 빼간다고.
well, sometimes when you make a great or very grand grave for those venerable monks, they steal a lot of things from the grave. And so if you also make a grand grave for the king, people make holes and steal everything. But if you don't want anyone to steal anything from the grave, then just burn the ash, just burn the body and throw away the ash. Let it blow in the wind, then no one will come to steal anything. And even the thieves will not be able to find. So you just have to know that there is no much speciality over there, and knowing that there is nothing special, it makes you human. But a lot of people believe that there is something special there. What is special about there? Even like myself, what is special about here? Well, maybe you can see stars when there's no cloud. But then even if I become president, what special thing can arise from there? That is also nothing special. It just causes headache. Well, if I have money, a lot of money, then what is that like? It's just some paper. If we also name ourselves with, if we also give ourselves grand titles, well, even that is nothing. That is also the greediness for the name. That too, just because the person does certain practice, people are actually calling the other person with some titles for their benefit. But then if I give myself some grand title, that also makes it funny. If people talk to you that like you're so beautiful, just like Miss Korea, then you can just say, well, is it so? But then if you go around saying you are Miss Korea yourself, then that is also a very funny story. If someone says, you're very handsome, well, you could say, oh, well, that's very fortunate. I have 2 eyes. That should be it. What else can be done? But then even if you have only 1 eye, you cannot really do anything about it. So there's no method with which you can exist in a special way. There's no one who is special. Even bodhisattvas, they are no special beings. They're only people whose compassion for human beings are great, but they are also not special people. It's something very foolish of me to say, but before someone came and said they're from Taiwan, and I got some videos, and also I got invitations for the teachings and said if I attend the teaching, I would be blessed.
뭔 영상인가 보니까
And so I was curious about what video that was. But then when I saw it, the person was wearing the white clothes just like Avalokitesvara. And here, the hair is like something like this. And in the middle of the hair, there was a Buddha. And with the flower, carrying the flower in the hand, the person came. And with the music, the person entered and said, she is a manifestation of Avalokitesvara. That's nothing. That's just cheating. Avalokitesvara is not such a person. For the good of all sentient beings,
상이 없고 얼마나 상이 다 사라져 버렸는지 그분이 누군지도 잘 모르고 도움을 받는 거야.
well, the person has lost himself, or Avalokitesvara has lost himself so much that we don't even know who that person is, but we are being benefited.
만약에 간세음보살님께서 도와주시는 가피를 갖다 입었다 그러면
If we are blessed by Avalokitesvara, then the person who is being blessed by Avalokitesvara, well, the person will only be able to see Avalokitesvara only if they pass the initial stage of Bodhisattva. They will just see Avalokitesvara as per their karma. That's going to happen 100%.
못 보는 거야.
You cannot see.
넘어야
So you have to overcome, or you have to pass the first stage.
도인들이란 분은
And also the saints,
도인이란 분은 더더욱이 무슨 뻗장다리 중생을 위해서 높은 단에 올라가고 중생을 위해서
for the good of all other sentient beings,
일반 사람보다
they enter into their practice and they try to help others. But in reality, they are more common, or they are more normal than other people. Why is this so? Because they don't have greediness for fame or anything else. So for them, there is nothing that they need to be hiding.
이제 세상 사람들은 상으로 자꾸 보고 그렇기 때문에 참뭐 모양으로 막 뭐가 어쩌고 저쩌고 그러면 막 거룩한 줄 알고 그러지만
And people care about external forces or behavior so much that they think having a lot of things or fame is great, but they are nothing grand. You need to have feelings, or you need to be good to other people. Then only we can say you're a great person.
어디냐?
Where are we?
그러면 같이 세간에서 나 또는 것이라고 하는 것은 착각일 뿐임을 알아요.
Therefore, we need to understand that in our everyday life, the something called that's mine is misunderstanding.
나가 말이지. 나가 그게 뭐 나가 이게 내 것이라고 하는 것은 다
So the thing that we call as mine, that is all misunderstanding.
이건 아주 그릇된 오착하는 생각이란 말이야.
That's a misunderstanding.
이 세상에 내 것이 어디 있노?
Where is mine in this world?
나는 인연 따라서 잠깐 생겨났다가
I have entered this world because of the relations.
존재로서의 나이지. 내가
I'm a being of the sort, but
할 만한 것이 어디?
there's nothing that which we can call as mine or myself. There's nothing.
그래서 우리는 허망하게도
So in a very futile way,
찍어놓고 사진 그걸 나래.
we just take pictures and we call ourselves as me. Is the picture me?
서산 스님이 자기 영정 그려놓고
The Venerable Sasan, after drawing his portrait, he said
살 때 가지고 이제
when he was 80 years old,
요즘
about
사진
when he was about to die, just like taking the picture,
그림 그리는 사람을 불러다 그려놓고서
he called the person, he called people drawing pictures and
뒤에다 뭐
said,
80년 전에는 저게 나더니
8 years ago, it was me, that
80년
was
전에는
me.
그것이야라. 저게 나더니 80년 후에는 내가 저게
But
되고
after 8 years, I had become that.
내가 저게 되고 80년 전에는 저게 나더니 80년 후에는 내가 저게 되고
That was me before, but
그 뒤에다
I was that before, but after 8 years, that has become me. It's written behind his portrait.
그렇지.
That's how life is. How old are you?
서울시 몇 살이요? 찹쌀 말고
60 years ago, that hair was mine.
저 머리가 내 머리더니
After 60 years, this hair has become that.
그
How did we know that we would have white hair now?
어떻게 알았겠어?
That's all misunderstanding.
착각입니다. 그냥 착각입니다. 거기에 그 착각해서 오착하지
You need to
말아야
be clear about your own understanding, and
깨어있는 정신 상태.
you should not misunderstand.
우리는 지금 사실상 오온으로 가제해서 이렇게 인연으로
We live as per with the five skandhas and with understanding, and also by listening to this teaching, sometimes we also take pictures in the brain,
찍고
and we listen with our ears, and inside we have this mental phenomena, and
그래서 저 말을 하는데
we tend to agree with some of the sayings and sometimes not. Well, it's a great thing.
대단한 일이야.
It's something amazing.
그 어마어마한 일입니다. 내가 뭐 강아지
Well, if I talk to some puppies, do you think they would follow? They would not follow anything. The mental world or the spiritual world,
이렇게 그 인연
depending on the relations,
인연과 이런 여러분들의 그 신체적 조건과 이런 것에 의해서 지금 이 정신
depending on
세계가
our body conditions and also depending on our previous karmas, our mental world is being formulated. And also,
그리고
the way that we exist now,
우리가 이렇게 하면
for example, if we say, when we say the earth,
호킹이 하는 말이
the earth is going to last for this many years, but there's no need to worry about it. The earth is going to be dust later, but there's no reason for us to worry about it now. Are you going to live until the time? Well, if you are going to live until the end of the world, then you need to worry about it a little. But I think by then there will be no human world, human race anymore. It's going to
지금 추세로 보면 인간의
it's going to be eliminated. And as with the human karmas, I don't think it will be so many years before we don't exist in this world anymore. Why is it so? When all the conditions disappear, we are going to disappear too. And the person or the animal that plays the greatest role in the extinction of this world is human race.
지 존재의 조건을 갖다 가장 많이 훼손.
Human race is a social animal that destroys the conditions for their existence. We are born as the youngest member of our earth, and we are doing many wrong things. We are the youngest,
맨 막내야.
and they have raised the youngest member in the wrong way. We make so many different things,
방구를 다
and the earth is depleted.
오염돼가지고 엉망이고 그냥.
And I heard that next year we are going to have more famine,
그 엘니뇨 현상이 더
and
심하게
also the Pacific Ocean is being heated up because of the global warming. is way bigger than last year, and so next year we are going to have more famine, and so I brought few more water bottles in my room. Well, in a very foolish manner, I have secured water in two more water bottles, like 2 liters more, so that I could drink next year. Do you also want to do that? Maybe 2 to 3 bottles if you save, then maybe there could be some difference. Well, this is
임무와의 반응을 지금 내 스스로도 내가
we have to understand ourselves that we ourselves do not have our own nature, and if we don't understand that, then we cannot be free from greediness. If we are not able to free ourselves from greediness, or if you say, at what do I have to grow our attachments for, or the world is fine, you need to understand that. So while returning from Spiti, I thought so. I was living in the night.
얼마나 나는 이 세상에서 가장
Where compared to Spiti, Ladakh is a heaven.
이 스피티라는 데는 완전히 그냥
It's weird that how human beings could survive there.
거기에 이제
And while leaving the place,
나오면서 그 이제 나오는
the road,
그 길이 그냥
well, since we are leaving, it became evening.
밤 나오는
And while walking around, it occurred to me, I saw it when I was coming,
이렇게 싹 돌아가는데 차 바퀴가
where the car tire was like also on the verge of the cliff.
떨어져 버리면
Well, if it falls, then there's no need to go to pick it, because it's about like 70 degrees and there are no trees, it's only rocks. And if you fall down, then you're going to fall 3 to 4 kilometers. And where can you go around to find the thing that has fallen down?
나오다 얼음물이 이제 녹아 내려오니까
And also, since the water is melting from the ice or the snow, and there are also many big like holes on the road,
그러니까 이제 운전수가 들어가가지고 옷을 이만큼 건지고
and so the driver goes out to see how deep is the hole and the water that's been there, and so you have to go around, and well,
그냥 이 끝에 그냥
you can feel that your feet are actually like tickling. And even while living there for a month or so, when I observe things,
이게
where we're living in this such an excellent environment, and we wonder where should we go to see maples, and should we eat chicken or eels, or while driving, which car should we drive, what should I wear, should we go to hair salons before? We think about those things,
뜻을 하고 살지만은 그거는
but over there are no things like that. And life itself, living itself, is void.
그냥 공성이야.
They're living in the voidness.
그러니까 이제
And so when you sit in the car and wonder, yes, there's nothing,
끝도 없는데
and if the car falls down from here, then it's the end.
그것이 끝이지.
You hold on to it and you shiver.
거기 가서 무슨 뭐
Where someone said, the person who was sitting in the back asked if I have insurance.
나왔습니까 그러더라고. 내가 이제 보험을 생각해 보니까
Well, but then insurance is something that someone else benefits from my death. So there's no need to have insurance, even though insurance is like cheating, because after my death, someone else is going to be benefited from it. Where if I have, out of my compassion, if I have too many insurances, there could be also a chance that I die because of it.
그래서
So it's all very futile, nothing in nothing.
그 이제 그
Well, while leaving the place, while driving the whole night, and at the dawn, I reached Manali around 3 to 4 in the morning, and the whole night we only saw the moonlight. And we came from 4,300 meters above sea level to driving by the cliff.
그래서
Well, all of them are very futile things.
뭐 우리는 지금
But because we live in too good place, we have attachments for so many things, and we go around looking for delicacies. Well, they are not interesting. So while living,
좀 살면서
you need to let go of your greediness. Well, we have lived our life in full greediness, but then if you let go of your greediness, you have side effects. You wonder, now what am I going to live for? And so you have to think that you're going to live your life helping others. And that's the way to Bodhisattva. With the money that I would buy myself clothes. Well, if you say the jacket, that's $1,400, it was so good. With that money, if you don't buy yourself a jacket, and with $1,400, if you help someone who was trying to commit suicide, well, it's 100 or 1,000 times better than buying yourself a clothes. There's no one who is going. Nowadays, you can hardly find anyone who die because of cold. Even the house that you live in, you could reduce the size a little. Even people like Napoleon, even person like Napoleon, after death, well, they cannot heat up the whole place where it's so big, and so because he could not take shower all the time, so he used perfume to reduce the smell. So I guess there was also a lot of lice there. So the lice which sucks the blood out of the king, what is it? So there's nothing special about the practice. When we say let go of things, we're not asking you to let go of many other things, but of your greediness. So let go of your greediness, since I never existed from the beginning. So there's no reason to hang on to it too. But I think it's going to help a little. Well, if you fatten yourself, then later, when you put on the makeup, I think if you have a lot of fat, it's going to stick on better. If you're too skinny, then maybe the makeup will not stay on you for a long time. Well, I'm asking you to let go of greediness a little. We are going to Gochang Sonunsa for our pilgrimage. We are going to the Dosoram Kritisha Garba, and it's also a very important place. It's a place where the Kritisha Garba manifested himself, and it is also one of our national treasure. So we would have a teaching there. With other temples, it belongs to with the Maitreya and also the Kritisar Garba. It's a place where they have they have shown themselves.
보시고 그다음에 저 선우사가 아니 도소람에 가서 이제 그
We are going to pray
기도 잠깐 하고 그다음에 참당함에 그 원래
a little and also
참법
learn how to do repentance.
그 법상 중에 참법서 진표율사한테 그 법이 분명히 진표율사대로 쭉 이어져 내려왔는데 꼭 가서 이제 보시고 그렇게 하게끔.
Please prepare for the pilgrimage, and it's all written here. Someone has written in a very pretty manner. Please write your details.
그 차가 맨날 차를 갖다가 뭐 한 대
Because sometimes when you call the car and ask them to go back, we pay about $600 to $700. So let's not do that. If you could write your application, a simpler application, then maybe we would have a better idea.
복지 기관들은 그게 다
All other places where it's attending, we have very accurate numbers. But we are not able to get it from you, so please do it before. And also those of you who are watching the teaching online, those of you who wants to join us,
서문사에서
is it 14th?
14일 날
Please make the notice online.
14일 날그 하니까 그날 저 뭐야 저
Please contact them in advance.
바로 오셔도
Even if you arrive Sononsa directly, you can also join us for the meeting. So if you're interested, please join us. Let's end today's teaching here.